Well, it's such an amazing feeling to know that it's yet another amazing Wednesday afternoon. And of course, it's my pleasure to have you join us on yet another amazing episode of Flipside on independent television, reaching you live from the city of Bronze. Yes, it's that city that I love to call the city where the king is truly king. Now, for those who are just joining us for the first time, Flipside is one show that seeks to balance issues by putting a twist to popular opinions, things that people tend to see from just one angle. Okay, so the idea is to ensure that we put a twist to it and take a look at it from a different perspective, a not so popular perspective. Now, it comes your way every Wednesday from 1:30 till about 2:25. My name is Harry Aigbo-J, and of course, it's always my pleasure to have you join me on this show. Now, today, we're taking a look at a very interesting topic. It's something that has to do with kids. Now, kids are dear to our hearts, okay, because they mean a whole lot to us, right? So we're taking a look at how a dysfunctional home impacts on them, okay? So the topic of today is a dysfunctional home and its impact on children. Now, everybody comes from a home, and just like we've learned, a home is one of the agents of socialization, right? So it's like the most basic agent of socialization. So from the home, you move to other aspects, right? From there, you go to the church, and then you go to places like the school and the rest of the society. Now, how does a dysfunctional home affect a child? Now, that's basically what we're talking about today on Flipside on independent television. Now, as usual, I'm not alone. I've got two beautiful people in the house with me, and together we're going to be doing justice to this discourse, okay? Now, it's something, like I said, these are amazing people. One of them is not a new face. I mean, he's been here a couple of times already. But the lady in the house is brand new. She's fresh, and it's good to have her in the house. And I'm going to be starting with the brother. He goes by the name of Oladele Ogundele. He's an educationist and the state secretary of AFED. It's good to have you in the house, Mr. Dele.
It's a pleasure. Good afternoon, viewers. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's indeed exciting to have you again.
Opportunity.
Yes, I mean, it's been like a month, right?
Yes, of course. The last time I was here was last week. At least Flipside is always very interesting to be.
Yeah.
Yes, especially when it comes to things that affect our society. So I really appreciate this privilege. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's good to have you. And of course, the only lady in the mix, a gorgeous one at that. She goes by the name of Abigail Ayobahi. Did I get your surname right?
Yes.
Okay, she is a social welfare officer and also a teens coach. It's good to have you in the house, Abigail.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, viewers.
All right, so let's get started. Now, we have a very important topic before us. Like I said, it's important because kids are involved. Okay, so the question, or the topic rather, is a dysfunctional home and its impact on children. First off, how would you describe a dysfunctional home? Maybe I should start with you, Abigail.
Okay, thank you for the question. Now, when we talk about a dysfunctional home is a family unit where there is consistent conflict and there is poor communication between the children and the parents. Then there is also lack of emotional stability in the home. Often there is abusive and neglectful behavior. Okay. Now, when we talk about dysfunction in the family, it's more on the parents than the children. So we are not just referring to the children here. We are talking about the activities or behaviors of parents that negatively impact the life of the children.
Okay.
So dysfunctionalism in families is typically about two persons or two parents. One of them who is usually an abuser, while the other person is a codependent or an enabler, somebody who enables a toxic or bad behavior. So it doesn't mean that in a dysfunctional home, both parents are bad or are negative. Okay. One of them may be the abuser, while the other parents may just be an enabler.
Okay, Mr. Dele, what's your perspective to that? Do you subscribe to it?
Yeah, just a little addition to what you said. You know, the word dysfunctional talks about abnormal.
Okay.
When things is not going on as supposed. Now, when we come to the home or the family unit, where every one of us has our beginning environment, beginning lifestyle, and it becomes dysfunctional, it's very, very dangerous. Now, the home is dysfunctional when things recipe for good behaviors are lacking, when the man and the woman are not working towards the purpose of the union. You know, training up children is one of the functions of the homes, and unfortunately today, you know, we talk about many things in our society, and when we talk about children, I get interested more because the behavior or the behavioral attitude and actions we have in the society today, both in the formal and even in the secular sector, is a product of dysfunctional homes. Okay. So when things that are supposed to be for the homes to be normal, to be good, to become an environment of attitude and character development is lacking, or these things are lacking, then that home is dysfunctional.
Okay.
It's dysfunctional.
All right, so that's how you will describe a dysfunctional home. Now, you are an educationist, so I'm sure you'll know better, right? How does growing up in a dysfunctional home affect a child's self-esteem and emotional well-being? Of course, I know it affects every aspect of a child's life. So let's focus on the self-esteem and emotional well-being. How does it affect, like, you deal with a lot of kids, for example?
We've had a lot of them. We still have. And sometimes there are times I will tell my staff that, please, don't punish this child for the behavior. I wish I could have access to the parent, because some of the parents were not also parented. Okay. Yes, and just like that, we have the line of it, and it still is on. Now, one of the things you observe in children from this, as it affects them, they lack self-esteem. Because there's like what she said, talking about abusive, talking about emotional, some of them even go to emotional blackmail. I don't want to go into that. But it's aftermath effect on the children that they lack self-esteem. They cannot express themselves. I have a particular child or a particular girl that if you are talking to her, it will get to the time she will start crying. Probably maybe you are pointing out to some area where she needs to improve in her studies, where she's not, and I have to call her one day. I say, no, I'm only pointing to you. I'm not giving you feedback. And I give you feedback, both positive and negative. So, and later, I have to get that something is going on in the home. And as a result, you see the problem, maybe the father is being abusive to the mother, or probably and these children see it. Or the other way around, like when she said about some of the women are suffering in silence, and she mentioned an enabler. They create that environment, and at the end of the day, you see the effect on the children. They lack self-esteem. Then when you come to emotional well-being of the child, she will not be balanced. She can't cope. She can't express herself. See, human. I keep saying this, that human is a spirit that has a soul, and in the faculty of the soul that lives in the body, in the faculty of the soul are the emotions, are the behavior, the character. The same way we wish to have spiritual food by going to church to build up our spirit, emotional, the soul also needs to be built up by wells, by getting knowledge of who we are or who the children. Don't tell children, don't behave, don't create an environment that will make them to think who they are not is who they are, or who they are is not who they are not. Are you getting it now? Create that environment as a parent, and that will really help them. So the emotions of these children get dampened, get reduced. They feel bad, they feel once they make a mistake, they don't know that mistake is part of life.
Part of life.
Once they fail exams or they fail tests, they just felt that, oh, no, you should let them know. See, this is how it goes. You fail, you pass. You can fail this, and it doesn't mean that you are dull. It does, in fact, that is one thing you don't say. You don't even mention it, that the child is dull or see your head. No, you don't say that. But do you know what? Some of them, they hear this from the home, they hear from their, where a father will be telling the mother, you are good for nothing, or the mother will be telling the man and said, you are very useless. You don't say that.
And some will even go as far as saying, look at the kind of child you produced.
You get, especially the men, sorry to say, and men are the one that carry seed and produce.
Okay.
So if you want to even go into that, it do happen from, the women also say that. But really, there is nobody, we parents really need to wake up and see that whatever we are creating in our homes have effect on these children, and they go out, they exhibit it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Abigail.
Yes.
You made mention of the fact that some parents enable abuse, right? Enable these mental health, mental abuse that we're talking about. Can you give us practical examples of such? How do some parents enable the issue of a dysfunctional home created? Because some parents are the ones that create the dysfunctional home, and then, like you said, some other parents enable it, right?
Yeah.
So how does that happen in
Okay.
practical terms?
All right. A practical example is, let's say, making a child to witness domestic violence. That has it has a negative effect on that child, because studies have shown that when a child witnesses domestic violence from the parents, when a child is growing in a violent environment, it has the same impact on that child as if the child is the one being abused. So when for instance, a woman is married to a man that is very violent, and she has refused to do anything about it. Maybe the only thing she does is to console the children. Maybe after the man beats her, abuse her or rain all sort of insults on her, then she will begin to kind of pacify the children. Please don't be like your father, don't be aggressive, it is not good to react in ways like this. She may do that, but what practical step has she done to remove the children from that toxic environment? Because the children are learning, because children learn by what they see the adults around them do. That child that may go out there and that child begin to exhibit that aggressive attitude, because why? He or she is learning from a parent. So when either you are a man or a woman, you are not doing yourself any good, and you are not doing your children any good by remaining in an abusive or toxic marriage or relationship. You need to consider the well-being of the children, in as much as the way it ought to be when God, the institution of marriage, the way God wants it to be is after God comes your spouse before your children. Okay. But in a situation whereby your spouse is abusive, your spouse doesn't consider your emotional or physical or psychological well-being, okay, you also need to put your children into consideration, because they are learning, whether directly or indirectly, they are learning to become abusive, because there is a study that says that most children raised in abusive homes also end up becoming abusers. Yes, that's how the cycle of abuse continues. So you need to do something about it. So what I would say in summary is that if you are a woman and you are training your children in a home whereby you are a victim of domestic violence, you are not helping your children by remaining in that marriage. Okay, so you recommend that she leaves for her mental health sake? If she has exhausted other options, because before you talk about leaving, there are other options that you need
They
to
must
look
explore.
into,
Okay.
like couples counseling,
Okay.
talking to your religious leaders, involving your family members. And if, for instance, you've exhausted all this, you know you've tried your best.
Yeah.
So it's better to remove your children because of your children. I know some women will say it's because of my child that I'm there, but you are harming that child.
True.
That's just the truth.
All right, thank you so much. I really do appreciate your, expansive analysis on that. Now, Mr. Dilly, let's take a look at the concept of emotional neglect. Okay, in all of this, like she has said, the kids are at the receiving end.
Yes.
Okay, so just like the old adage says, when two elephants fight, the grass beneath suffer, right?
Yeah.
Now, what happens when all of these things are happening? The kids are taking it in, but nobody cares about how it's affecting them. So that has to do with emotional neglect. What do you think is the long-term effect of emotional neglect to kids?
Thank you very much. Like what she said, these things have ripple effect. These things, whatever that happen in the homes, you will just, it takes God's grace that at a time, there will not be a break in that circle of that, whatever that is happening in the home. Now, one of the things that I've observed over the years is that, may I say that a lot of our leaders, of our people that at the forefront and people in administrative offices and political offices, sometimes they seems to be a product of these things we are discussing. They seems to be, because I get surprised when somebody will carry a mace in the House of Assembly in the glaring, or in the public and fight, or someone will get to a junction and park the vehicle, and I'll get, my children will be inside the car and I'll be fighting
in public.
So I look at it that maybe it's also, now the effect on these children is this. One, they grow up becoming potentially deficient. They can't fulfill the depth of what is in them because there is this neglect. They experience this kind of a situation where they can't focus, and at the end, some of them even become clamorous. They feel self-pity.
Okay.
Yeah, they feel self-pity when there is one of the characteristics of weakness of a melancholy that I don't like.
Pessimism.
Yes, pessimism. They feel I can't do it. They feel
feel less of themselves.
They feel less of themselves. Thank
you.
Thank you for that word. So at the end, what happened is we now see that all of us in the society, because I used to say that the greatest resource you can have is human. I'm telling you, the greatest. It's not money. But in Nigeria, in our society, we prefer that. And that's why we don't pay attention to children. We don't pay attention to their well-being. Some of our parents are trying. Why sometimes a lot of us are not, a lot of them are not doing what they're supposed to do, because it required some kind of decisive decision and steps to take for me to be able to say, okay, I want to build this my children. I want to build this my words in this direction. Are you getting it? So that they will get out. Another thing is that they become unconscious outside. They become lousy. We have them in. You see, there are some persons in school, they use words that they have you know, okay, you are not, none of us here is a teacher. You've not seen us, we've all seen, you will just mark that this child, they keep reporting, the classmates keep reporting this child to you of emotional bullying. Words that are not supposed to be, they use them on another of the, and those ones will now feel as if is being bossy on them.
Yeah.
While those ones also that have this kind of neglect, what happened to them is they will feel less. Are you getting it now?
Yeah.
They won't be able to, because I used to tell the children that, see what you should do. First of all, confront your mates first. Even if it's not even your mate. When somebody tells you you are bad, even if it's me, and standing you say you are dull. Hello, sir, I'm not dull. Are you getting it?
So that's
but most
self-confidence.
Yes, but most of these children that in this category of they don't. They just they accept it. They just give in and they accept it. And by that, you are not helping them. So now, that kind of confidence has to be built from home.
Definitely.
That kind of confidence that I can tell you, hello, you are this, you know, I'm not, sir. Courteously replied to the person, even if it's your elder. If it's your mate, you come,
in situations like that, sometimes, some elders see kids like that as rude.
Rude?
Yes.
Do you know what? It's a level of this thing you said. There was a time I was thinking so. But do you know what? I've come to love and like those children. Because I've seen that when I gauge them with an open mind. Some of my elders
because you are an educationist.
Oh,
that's your field.
But
for laymen, right?
There
is lots of lay people that may not be able, they may not understand. They will just easily dismiss the child as rude and disrespectful.
My senior pastor's children, when they behave, I just love them. I'm telling you.
Okay.
You say, sir, no, it's not true, sir. You get it. You see, it is the way.
Your manner of approach.
Yes. Doesn't mean that they don't have to. Why will I take it? In a developed country, they will, if you say to them, how are you? They say, I'm fine, sir. Are you getting it now? They can respond to you courteously and be confident.
Okay.
So but when somebody is suffering this, they won't be able. And we are building a bad society. Are you not seeing that people are bullying the other, suppressing the other? The other one will become deficient in contributing to the society. The other one will not sit on the other one, while that one is feeling inferior. And some of them go as far as even committing suicide. Do you know what we see? Or some of them giving, and there was a time I told my daughter, somebody said, I don't know what happened, and she said, my classmate laughed at me. I said, laugh at you, that what? Then you should be confident that, what do they laugh at you for? What happened? Then you have to correct them. I told her, no, you don't laugh. So you have to be confident. Okay. But most of the time, when children have this experience, this neglect emotionally, they behave substandard. Okay. That's not the society we should build. All right. Yes.
Now, Abigail, I would like for us to, establish a difference between assertiveness, between firmness, between confidence and arrogance. Because nowadays, it gets mixed up a lot. Somebody is exhibiting traits of confidence, right? Just like he said, in this part of the world, for example, it's wrong for a child to tell or to ask an adult, how are you?
Yes.
Because it's considered as an insult, right? But it's just a basic question. Yes. So how do you build confidence in your child without necessarily, making them arrogant and proud or rude?
Now, some people, like you mentioned, when you are assertive, they see it as rudeness. But being assertive is not the same as being rude. Now, if you want to build confidence in your child, you also need to teach them manner of approach, how to approach people. I believe it's the way they present maybe a particular statement they want to make, the way they present it, the manner of presentation matters. Okay. There's a way you will present something and the other person will perceive you as rude. But there's a manner with humility. If you approach it with humility, the person will know that you are not being rude. You are just a bold child. Okay. You are one confident child. So there's a big difference between being assertive and being rude. But we as parents, it now falls on us to teach our children manner of approach. There's a way in as much as we want to learn the developed cultures or the way the whites do it, we also don't need to forget our culture. Okay. So there is a way you teach your children. For instance, you tell your child, you don't ask an adult, how are you? Some people may perceive it as being rude. It depends. For somebody like me, when I was still teaching, I had this student. Whenever she sees me, she will ask me, and whenever she greets me, I respond. She will say, Auntie, how are you doing today? Because of that, I just feel attached to her. Because how many students are concerned about their teachers? Okay. But at that age, whenever she just greets me, she will ask me, Auntie, how are you doing today? But if, for instance, she was just walking and say, how are you? I will feel insulted. So the manner in which it is presented matters. So in as much as we want to teach our children to be assertive, but we also need to teach them good manners.
Teach them how to express it
How to express themselves, yes.
Not to look rude.
Yes, there's also a way you want to present something that is kind of, it may sound insulting. There's a way you will present it. Even the receiver won't even know.
Okay.
There's a way you present it. So presentation matters, manner of approach matters.
Okay, now, Mr. Dele, you are an educationist and you have a lot of kids under your care. How does instability in the home affect a child's ability to assimilate, to understand?
It does. A lot. If you tell me how, I think maybe I'll just mention one or two.
Tell me about it.
Then later, yes.
Okay.
How? Wow. Instability in the home, the child will not be stable in school or will not be stable in the classroom. I'm telling you. We have situations where children come to school and they've not taken breakfast. And it's not that there is no food, but the house is chaos and you get it. And also, how does it affect? It affects performance. Academic performance, always low. Always low. A child that is good can come and perform bad in a classwork or homework or even a project work, whatever. So to me, I think the onus rests on the parents to ensure that can we do this for the sake of our children? Can we just do this? Because the home, I used to tell parents, be intentional in training. There's what we call intentional parenting. It's different from intentional. The home is the first university of the child. Are you getting it now? Yeah. Now, how do you intentional? Let me give you an example. You want the child to, when he wakes up in the morning, to start doing so, you call and instruct. Not that you wake up, hey, you did not do, are you not supposed to know that you are intentional? Now, I'm intentional that I want to teach my child to know how to handle my male child, to know how to respect ladies without being abusive or giving them the gap. You get my point?
Yeah.
I will be intentionally by calling them and telling them, educating them. That's it. Will be like I will sit them down and one-on-one. That is one. Two, I will also observe them as they respond, maybe in churches and social gathering outside, and give them feedback. Okay. I will not. I will see them as he behave misbehaving. Like go. That's not it. Okay. Then the last thing I want to say is that when you come to school, apart from performance in class, the associates, the relationship of that child when it comes to classmates and the classmates used to be affected. There's a way, why some of them even confined in the teacher or confined in the student and tell them, oh, you know, when your child started saying what is happening in the home, yesterday my father was just beating my mother. I'm not happy. You get me? Demoralize them and weaken their interest even in the studies.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Dilly. Now, Abigail, as a teens coach, how do you identify a teen who is a product of a dysfunctional home, for instance?
Okay. There are different ways to identify children growing up in a dysfunctional home. A good example is withdrawal or isolation. That child may begin to act isolated in social setting, and this is this depends on the kind of dysfunction going on in the home, because there are different
kinds of dysfunction.
Yes, dysfunctionalism
I think
that
we're going
exists.
to examine that.
Yes, in a family
forward.
setting. Now, if that child, let's say this child is going through sexual abuse, most times that child will become withdrawn. You will notice that a child that used to be active, that used to be an extrovert, that used to mingle with the friends, she now suddenly becomes withdrawn. Sometimes even the people who lives close to her, they will say she's becoming matured, she's growing up. But they won't know that there's something that is
making her withdrawn.
Eating her up, that is making her withdrawn. So one of the ways is withdrawal. Then you have isolation. Then aggression. Depends on the specific dysfunction going on at home. If that child is growing up in a conflict-driven home, I call it a conflict-driven home, you will notice that that child will begin to act aggressive. Sometimes when you see some children, the way they behave at home is the exact way their parents behave at home, because children learn by role modeling. Then you also notice in the way the children react to things. They may lack emotional regulation skills. That they find it difficult to control their emotions. There are some people, when you just ask them, you just tell the child, sit down here, they will just flare up. You can't correct them.
All right, hold that thought, Abigail. Don't worry, you pick it up from there right after this break. Please stay tuned. Yes, it's great to have you back. It's still Flipside on independent television. We're taking a look at a dysfunctional home and how it affects kids, how it affects children. Now, Abigail, you were saying something before we went on that break.
Okay.
Yes, you made mention of the different kinds of dysfunctional homes earlier.
Yes.
Can you itemize a few of them?
Okay. When we talk about dysfunctionalism in the family, what comes to some people's mind is just maybe violence in the home or conflict. Why violence and conflict in the home is an example of a dysfunctional home, but there are various forms.
Okay.
Dysfunctionalism in families can take different forms. There are even
forms.
subtle forms that some people are not even aware of. Even some of us who are adults, we are not even aware that we grew up in such. Now, I want to also, I want to also put this into recognition that the fact that a child is exhibiting or an adult exhibits certain behavior, it doesn't really mean that that child is a product of a dysfunctional home.
Okay.
For you to term a home a dysfunctional home, that behavior of the parent needs to be repeated, like it should be repetitive. It should be something that happens continuously, not a one-off or something that happens maybe, it doesn't happen frequently, that fluctuates. For instance, the idea of a perfect parent is an illusion, is not true. Because there is no perfect, in as much as we try our best, we can be intentional in our parenting, but we cannot be perfect. But one thing is constant. In a functional home, children feel loved, they feel heard, and their feelings are validated. Okay. Even when the parents may have occasional outbursts. So I will not conclude because I saw a mother yelling at her child at the mall, or she spanked the child, and I will not conclude, this child is growing up in a dysfunctional home. No. Discipline is very important in raising a wholesome child or wholesome children.
Discipline or capital punishment is not a sign of a dysfunctional home. That's what you're saying. Not
discipline
necessarily.
Yes, discipline. There are positive ways of disciplining a child.
Okay.
So when we talk about the various forms of dysfunctionalism that exist in a family, one of them is the abusive family or an abusive home. Abuse can take majorly three forms. Where we have physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. Okay. When we talk about physical abuse, it has to do with giving excessive punishment to a child, maybe because of a little mistake or misbehavior. Most times when it comes to, nobody is saying you shouldn't discipline your child, but the punishment should be in accordance to that misbehavior. But some parents overreact. Some parents unleash their anger on their children. The child will just do a little thing and they will begin to beat that child. Like my husband will always say, if my children, maybe they destroy something mistakenly, my husband will say, when I was growing up, I did worse, just leave them. Because it's a mistake. Even we as adults, we make mistakes. Who beats us when we make mistake? Sometimes I've destroyed my phone screen like maybe 3 or 4 times. Even my children, they've not even done that up to that, that amount, numbers. Yeah. But whenever I maybe mistakenly drop my phone and the screen becomes bad, who will not discipline me or beat me and say, you destroyed your phone with your hands. Okay. But when our children do something, and we know it's a mistake, we know it wasn't deliberate.
So you're saying that some parents take out their frustration on their children?
We begin to excessively. So you can discipline a child in a proper way, but the discipline should match the misbehavior. Okay. Yes, it should match the misbehavior. Okay. So when a parent is always pouring their aggression or their frustration, then you have this issue of corporal punishment, excessive beating or unleashing your anger on the child. That's an example of physical abuse. Then when we talk about sexual abuse, it's something that we all know. Sexual abuse in a home, you can have, there are cases, when we talk about a dysfunctional home, sometimes it may not just be the parents, because dysfunctionalism may exist in family. It may not just be kind of a nuclear family, maybe an extended family. Okay. So you may have a close family member who is sexually abusing the child or the children. So parents also need to be aware of that. We have also heard of cases whereby parents, or let's say a father, molest their own biological daughters or sons, I don't know. Okay. But we have also heard cases like that. Then when we talk about emotional abuse have to do with dismissing your child's feeling. In a home where emotional abuse is present, feelings are usually not talked about.
No.
Okay.
In such homes, you cannot express yourself. The parents may be there physically, but they are emotionally
absent.
unavailable.
Okay.
In such homes, signs of warmth and affection is missing.
Okay.
So most times, the children's feelings are invalidated, and that's one thing that children need. Emotional connection helps to build a child's self-esteem.
Self-esteem. Okay.
So another form of dysfunctionalism that exists in a family is what we call the conflict-driven family. A family whereby the parents are always at loggerheads, they are always quarreling. Instead of them to look for a meaningful way to settle their differences, they will always resort to verbal abuse.
Even in the presence of their
in
children.
presence of the children, neighbors must hear their voice. They don't have good conflict management
skills,
or
okay.
resolution skills. They don't know it. They don't know how to apply it
Okay.
whenever they are having issues. Then we also have the violent family. The violent family where you have issues like domestic violence, where the parents exchange physical blows or
Okay.
they are physically abusive.
Which is the popular one.
Yes, it's very popular. The violent family.
Okay.
Then we also have another example is when a child is forced to take side when the between parents. When a
Okay.
child is forced to take side, or when you use a child or your children as a weapon or tool against your estranged spouse.
Okay.
Separation is it happens all the time in the society. When you begin to use your child to get to your
spouse.
partner or your husband or wife, and you are no longer together with them, that is a dysfunctional home. Because why? That thing is affecting the children's life, because they love both parents, they love mommy and daddy, but
Or
now
you're compelling them to take
yes,
sides.
you are now manipulating them to say, I don't want to be with daddy, or I don't want to see daddy, or you are now saying some negative things about the other partner,
Okay.
which is not supposed to be so.
All right.
So that's another example of dysfunctionalism. Another one that I'll talk about is when children grow in a kind of an high-risk environment, when you train your children in such environment. Let's say an environment where you have the prevalence of cultism or violence.
Okay.
No matter what you do as a parent, no matter how well you try to teach such children, the environment,
Toxic environment.
yes,
is going to
the
take a toll on
environment
them.
will affect, because you will just be doing your own, and the people living within that environment, maybe cultists or people with questionable moral character,
Okay.
they will negatively be because your children will be seeing them. I used to have this colleague when I was teaching. He used to organize home lesson for these children. I think there were 2 boys and a girl, so because he told me these children, they live in a brothel where prostitution takes place. He said whenever he goes there, he will teach the children. Sometimes he will just be embarrassed on behalf of the parents. The call girls will be there exchanging words with their clients and smoking,
All of
and the
that will be
children
happening
are
right in the
made.
presence of the
Yes,
children.
the children are made to see that. So tell me what kind of moral values you want to inculcate on such children, and they will not listen to you when they are growing in such
Such a toxic environment.
environment.
Okay.
So these are some examples of dysfunctionalism
Dysfunctionality, okay.
that exists in families.
Thank you so much, Precious. That right there was an eye-opener. Mr. Dilly, some persons will also argue that favoritism is another form of a dysfunctional home, where children, have preferences among their kids. Okay, some parents will tell you they don't actually say it, they don't make it, so obvious. But they have certain children that are dear to their hearts. It's not like the other ones are not dear, but they just have this favorite, among the children. Do you think that is an example of a dysfunctional home?
Okay, thank you very much. I will tell you yes, in the sense that every child that is brought to this world, to the family, has his or her own place. And we as parents, one of the things that we really need to learn and do is to know what a child is made up of, and probably the path the child is going, because you are a guide to help nurture to get to that destination that the child is going. She elaborated so much about dysfunctionality in the home. One other one I will add is not allowing children to have their will sometimes. Now look at it. The growth in the children is in stages. There are times that you make all decisions for them. There are times they go on, you allow them to make one or two. You are training them, you are building them. There are times you get to in their life, they make decisions themselves, becoming a young adult.
All right, hold that thought, Mr. Dilly, and please do not forget, because you're going to be picking up from there right after this break. Please stay tuned. Yes, welcome back. It's still Flipside on independent television, and we're talking a dysfunctional home and its impact on children's well-being. Now, Mr. Dilly, you can conclude on the thoughts you started out.
I was just trying to say something that they should be able to have their decision. They should be able to have say. You can guide, you can advise. You can say, if you go this route, see. But we have situations where, and it's dysfunctional, it is a form of dysfunctionality, where you impose on them what they should do, what they should read, the course they should read, what they should become. In fact, who they should marry.
Wow.
Yeah. And at the end, you may end up not having a better life. Some of them would argue
that they do it in the best interest of those children, right?
Best interest. Let me tell you, every of best interest has selfish interest. Every of what we call best interest. Now, let me quickly wrap up. And now, another thing is this. When a child is in a family where it doesn't mean that you cannot correct them, you cannot guide them, you cannot tell them, you can't convince them. There are times you stand your ground. Yes. But do you know what? Children knows when you are saying truth. And they know. And when you are saying based on your selfish interest, they know. The reason why I wanted to go to the University of Benin, so that my children, I will mention that they are in University of Benin. Not because of this particular course. Probably University of Benin have it more for my information I gathered or whatever. Okay. Now the same thing, I'm just mentioning one, I'm just using as an example. The same thing when it comes to all other areas of life. Then another thing I want us to know is that, you see, when a family gets to, she mentioned when it comes to physical abuse, when it comes to abuse that is detrimental and dangerous to ourselves, that's where we advise that, okay, you can take family can take a part. Instead of putting the children to go through that, they can just take while they are recuperating. If they can come back, we're not saying they should divorce. Yeah, they can separate for that purpose, for a while, to reevaluate and go through training. Not to separate and be alone, just to be going through this thing, what you're doing to recuperate back, then come back. Because once a home breaks, the children suffered more. That's the truth. Whichever way, the children suffer more. So as that, I won't support for whatever. You can make it work. It's just that we are not ready to pay the price. We can make the marriage work, we can make the home work, we can make it better for our children. And lastly, let the children be very, very involved in the progress, activities of the home. Tell me, want to have a family decision, want to have a family meeting, let the children be aware. Let them know, want to take this route, want to take this, let them be aware. So this information is carry them along. This information, you are also training them for tomorrow when they have their family, on how they should run the family. Then the last thing I will say is that let there be a good and proper communication. Very, very important. Between the man and the woman, let there be proper communication, a deep one. Between the children, let there be proper communication. Not that I told you, you should know. You should know. Be a proper communication doesn't mean that I talk to you doesn't mean we are communicating. That's what we call journalism communication in marriage. Absolutely. Where we'll be talking about other people's matter. There's a real depth communication that should go on so that you'll be able to say, oh, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm doing. They also give room for their own opinion. Contributions. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, as we begin to wrap up, Abigail, what role do you think therapy and counseling can play, in helping children overcome the effects of dysfunctionality?
Okay. Therapy and counseling can play an integral role in helping the children growing up in a dysfunctional home to combat the adverse effects. Now, through therapy provide a safe space or a conducive environment for the children to express their thoughts and emotions or their feelings without any fear or judgment. So you can only achieve that through the help of a therapist or professional counselor.
Okay.
Because some of these children, they find it difficult to open up. Because even while I was teaching, there are some children I observed that something is going on, but sometimes when you call them to talk to them, some of them is very difficult for them to open up.
Okay.
Because most often than not, if that child is growing up in a home where there is emotional neglect, that child will find it difficult to express themselves. They will begin to bottle up their feelings because they begin to develop trust issues. So they will feel that everyone has a negative motive because of the kind of home they are coming from. So therapy can help, and a therapist can also help a child who is growing up in a dysfunctional home by teaching them methods that they can use to regulate their emotions or control their emotions, teach them stress management and coping mechanisms.
Okay.
And they can achieve this through a variety of techniques like mindfulness, relaxation, and problem-solving skills. So
thank you so much. Really amazing. Thank you very, very much. Now, Mr. Dilly, on the final note, in less than 1 minute, what advice would you give to parents who probably do not realize that their homes are dysfunctional, you know, but because of certain things that they're doing in the home, their children are not happy and it's telling heavily on their children? What advice would you give to such parents?
They should go for training.
Okay.
They should go for training. At a time in my school, anytime I want to have parents, teachers, association meeting, I create like few minutes to train. From what I've seen in the children, I want to have, I can invite somebody like this again and say, please, can you just talk to them on this area? They should go for training. Education, knowledge is very, very important. Our people sometimes don't even know. They just feel that you give birth to children, they grow, you go to market, you get them food, that's all. So training is very important. Training, our churches will organize training for parents, our religious body, everywhere. There will be training and retraining for children regarding raising up of these kids for future purpose. I want to ask a question, which I always ask. I do ask parents, if you were to be parent of Barack Obama that gave birth to Barack Obama, would Barack Obama still have become the United States president? That is to say, you have provided an environment, the resources, guidance for such person to rise from an African to that level. Same thing I'm asking for other persons that have achieved, that have become great in life, developed. Could they, if their parents have not provided, or may not even be their biological parent, one parent or the other provided. So let there be training so that our people have resources to guide our children.
All right, thank you so much, lady and gentlemen, for honoring my invitation and giving such amazing insights on this topic. I really learned a lot, and I hope and I trust that a lot of persons out there have learned a whole lot as well. Thank you so much, and I hope that the next time I call on you, you will oblige me. Thank you very much. All right, it's been Flipside on independent television, and we've been taking a look at dysfunctional homes and their effects, their impact on the lives of children. Now, a home is the most basic unit of a society. So if you have a bad home, it's definitely going to tell on the society. So much of the negativity we see in the society today stems from the home. So that's why it's very important that as a parent, you are very, very intentional about raising your children and building a very healthy and conducive environment for your family to thrive. Now, if you get it wrong on the home front, you can be rest assured that it's going to tell on the rest of the society. So it is the responsibility of every parent to ensure that they do their homework just so that society will be better for it. A very big thank you to every one of you for being a part of this. My name is Harry Aigboje, and until I come your way again, same time, same station next week, do ensure you do the right thing, stay out of trouble, and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.